All right, everybody. Adam back with another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles podcast. And today we got John with us in studio. I opened the wrong dang beer, so I'll switch over my koozie here. But so we're going to talk about kind of what we got going on. We kind of alluded to it and talked a little bit about, bows and whether you can outshoot your equipment and stuff like that. And I guess if you want to get John on the podcast more, you just got to bribe him. So what was it? We were at, I think it was like one of the first weeks of shooting, and you're like, well, because I was talking about the only way that I would shoot a Mathews was because of the legs.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, the only thing that would get me, I think, to shoot a Mathews is the fact that they have those legs and you can shoot with them on. It's pretty nice. I know you can shoot with those like Pine Ridge ones or whatever, but they don't really.
Right. They're not.
I don't know. They kind of flop around, and then you still get. I don't know.
Yeah, because they hook right to the limbs. The other ones, Mathews hooks right into the limb pocket, so it's not going to affect anything with the shootability.
So and John said, kind of tongue in cheek, well, just buy me a lift and you can shoot this one. And I was like, no, I don't think so. Just because, well, I guess, how do you look at bows? Because I think I'm just too cheap. And I think that's really what it is. Like when I look at bows, I look at, the Expeditions, that MagTech or whatever that is, that magnesium riser, $2,000 basically. The carbon PSE $2,000. That RX8, I was like sticker shocked when I was in. It's carbon, but it's $1,800.
Right.
The Carbon Elite $1,700. So
I haven't looked at any
No, I'm just saying but when you're looking at a new bow, like.
Well, so I'm looking at how the ease of tuning, and that's one thing. Like the old Bowtech, the ones that So when I got the Revolt, and you got the Revolt X, whatever I got, and you got the
Zion, carbon Zion.
Yeah. So
even with a free bow, I'm cheap.
Right. Yeah, I'm like, we got 3 free bows. Like, what do you want? I'll take the carbon. Well, so the tunability of the bows, you got on the Bowtechs have that, what do they call it, the deadlock? I don't even remember now, but super easy. Don't even need a press. And then Mathews still has a top hat, which, it's a little more involved. You got to have a press to do it, but it works great, I think. Compared to, Hoyt went back to the old shims, and yeah, they send you a shim holder, but it's still a pain in the butt, when you're tuning a bow. But so the thing about for me with Mathews, what I was looking at was the switch weight. So I'm always, like my old Hoyts, my old PSE, I had 2 different sets of limbs. I had 80s and 60s or 70s and 60s, and that's a whole rebuild. You start, you're swapping limbs out. You got to basically retune the whole bow. Where with the Mathews, with the switch weight, it's just a mod. So last year when I was having issues with my neck, got to the Bowman's Club that first night of leagues, couldn't draw my bow back because I had 75-pound mods and I'd hurt my neck. And then luckily I had the 60-pound mods, ran out, grabbed them, and 4 bolts later, had the 60s in. Yeah, I had to do a little bit of switching. I had to, adjust my windage on the fly, but it worked. No, I didn't have to put it in the press, do anything with it. So switching with the Mathews, that's what drove me towards the Mathews. That's what I was looking at. And so I have the V3X. I don't even have the what was the one last year? Phase 4. So I didn't get the Phase 4 last year because that V3X shoots. I really like the way it shoots.
So one of the questions that came up in kind of preparing for this podcast and talking about bows and things like that was, When, like, so a guy like yourself, you're a perfect example, and it kind of leads into where we're going with this. But one of our buddies, Tom, is shooting the Hoyt Double XL because it's one of the only bows that goes out to. He's 32 and a quarter.
Right. Yeah.
And he's like, I've shot less and whatever, but and you can kind of speak to this because you're in that same boat where there's only so many bows that you can shoot, right? So would he be better finding a bow would he be better like shooting all the way at the top, or getting a bow that's 31 and a half, because a lot more of them go to 31 and a half and they go to 32 plus, and how efficient, like, so where is it at for tuning and all that stuff you're talking about?
So like the bows are always the most efficient set at the longest draw, maxed out on poundage. I mean, that's what they're set for. So like Mathews, they have the Atlas. I mean, I'm not even sure if they still have that, but that's their really long draw. And then pretty sure, well, I know that the V3X goes all the way out to 31, and I actually shoot the Mathews at 30 and a half, but they're like a half inch, like they run long. So
their speeds can be higher. I mean, that's the hypothesis, right?
Right. So I order a 30 and a half mod, and it pretty much comes out to about 31. And then, depending on how I tune the bow, I can twist the cables up a little bit and get a little more if I want. And then it also gives me a little more poundage too, because they only have up to 75-pound mods.
But on all the other bows, like besides a Mathews or whatever, are you losing tunability, anything like that? If you're shooting like inside of
if you're shooting at the lowest end, like say it's 26 to 32 or something, and you're shooting at the 30 or the 26 side, I believe that you're going to lose definitely some, efficiency, or it's not going to have the tunability also. I mean, that's a wide range in that cam. I mean, yeah, it's nice because then you can adjust, you can sell it's easy, it's a resale value, because with Mathews, I'm shooting a 30 and a half. Not a lot of guys are going to shoot that. Well, I shoot a 28. Well, I'll say the bow, but then you have to go get mods, and they're, $80 to $100 if you can find them. So that's nice with the adjustable cams. But I mean, and I don't know, the technology now has definitely come a long way. I mean, where they're still good shooting bows. The old ones, like, I can't remember, like Jet had, I don't even remember the name of it now.
It was
like the Edge or something.
Infinite Edge Pro.
That thing went from like 25 to 32.
And it went from like 7 pounds to 70.
Yeah. Like, so you're definitely giving up some accuracy there. I mean, you're not going to go out and shoot tack at 120 yards with it. But
maybe next year you could. Maybe that's what we do next year.
But I always say, like, when you're going to go look at new bows, get a new bow. Don't look at the name, brand. Like Ernie was just saying, like, what about the Bowtech? I'm like, just go shoot them all. Don't even look at the names. Go shoot every bow, and whatever one fits you the best and shoots the best, buy that one.
Do you think that's true though? Because I know for a fact that you will like walk past bows. You're like, I'm not shooting that piece of shit. Like I know for a fact. I've heard those words come out of your mouth.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I'm a little bit of a bow snob, but I know one bow I won't shoot. Yeah. Even though they have, like, I don't know, new personnel and shit in the office and stuff, and new technology. But I mean, like I said, if you switch weights a lot, Mathews is the bow for you. If you're tuning your bow a lot, then either like the Elite that has the limb cup adjustments, or Bowtech that has the deadlock system with the adjustable cams. If you're going to tweak and play with stuff and you don't have bow press, most guys that are going to do all that probably already have a bow press.
What if you're just like a normal guy that wants to hunt and is just gonna like shoot his bow and go hunting? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, you are talking about such a specific kind of type of individual, and I think for our podcast it kind of goes like all the way across the board. And I feel like, you know, sometimes we talk about all this stuff, but I guess, you know, the further I get down into this like rabbit hole, the more people I see that do all their own bow work and they do tweak stuff and they do all that stuff. But it just seems like,
or there's also like Travis, like we talked to. I mean, that was the last podcast I did. He's like, you know, I don't have the time for it. Like, I don't have time, so I just send it out. It's worth my money and time to just send it out to someone that knows what they're doing. And if you really want to shoot, you know, there's a lot of top guys that do that too.
Well, and you remember when we first started the podcast and we kind of got into talking with my brother and my brother's friends who are really into hunting and going out west and all that stuff. And there's a guy on Archery Talk who they send their bow and an arrow to the guy, and he tunes it with their arrows and then sends it back. And I forget whatever the guy's name is, and they like Borsmai's it or whatever.
Right.
You know, that's what it was called. But you paid $120 or something to have that done. And you know, maybe there's more of that. But for the guy that doesn't like tune his bow or whatever, I mean, like my brother Dustin, you know, hunts his balls off, but you know, can't tie on a D loop. I mean, maybe you probably could figure it out, but you know, that's not where
he calls me.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing is, like, you know, we're fortunate if you need your hand stitched up, you call Dustin.
Exactly.
So it kind of goes both ways.
Saws all your hand. Call Dustin and sew it up.
But for a regular, like for a normal guy who's doesn't care about like
all the fine tuning,
little clicking over here and clicking over there, or like switching out the mods or top hats or
right. So if you're just you know, the average hunter that's going to go out whitetail and you're going to shoot like 30 yards, like you can go get a bow at the pawn shop. I mean, honestly, there's probably a lot of good. Actually, I brought some of my old Mathews there, and he's like, "Yeah, those are too old. They shoot great." But so anyway.
Got two of them hanging right there that I got to drop off to Tyson this year.
Right. So, yeah, you could go to Cabela's even. You know, I don't know if I would have them tune my bow or set it up, but you could buy a...
Did you set up my bow when I bought it? Or did I just shoot it off the shelf? I think I just shot it off the shelf.
Yeah, that was before I was like... Yeah.
Because we hunted together.
Yeah, that was before we were like really... We got into this stuff. Yeah, I was tuning my bows, but then you're like, what the hell is he shooting?
So that leads perfectly into this podcast because I'm cheap, and I don't know if it's because of like my background, not from like the cheap side, but more of like a different type of analytical than you are. Like you're like from like all the engineering side and look at all this and like, so for those of you who haven't heard the story, I think it was the year that I killed the big one in Ohio. It was either that year or the following year, but I blew up my bow. I didn't take care of the strings, and I knew they were crusty looking.
Kind of like a D-loop.
Yeah. John just about broke his nose a couple weeks ago. And he called it. He said, my D-loop's going to break, and it did. But I drew that bow back, and it just went, tink, and I pulled it away from my face, and it just, one of the cables broke. And so one of the cams was bent. And so Frank had just retired. He got the brand new Mathews Healy M, and it was $1,200. And I looked at the specs on it. And I was looking at all the other bows, and I actually, what's funny, and I don't know why, but like, it's so weird. I wanted one of the new, like that was the first year I feel like Bear Archery like actually had $1,000 bow, and it was the first year they had like the cable guide like all of the fancy bows did, like the ones that come off the side with the wheels. I don't know what they call that. I think of it more as like a Bowtech thing, like maybe they were one of the
Yeah,
first.
like the regular roller guys.
Yeah, without the bar that came out.
Yeah.
But it was the first year that they came out with it, and I was like, man, I don't really want to buy the first gen anything. So I was like, well, I'll wait until next year. Well, and I was looking at all the different bows and all the different specs, and like, I was like, well, if I'm going to spend $1,000 next year, I don't really want to spend $1,000 this year. So I found this Bear Encounter ready to hunt package from Cabela's, and it was $299. And then my buddy had a Cabela's card and got points and all this stuff, so I got it for like $280. And I just stripped all the stuff off of it, put all my normal stuff. I think I shot it with a whisker biscuit. I can look at the pictures, but I'd bet that I did. And had a HHA sight on it, and I don't know if it still had the stupid peep sight in it or not. I doubt it.
With the rubber
hose, yeah,
surgical tubing.
yeah, and I killed a few deer with that bow, biggest deer I've ever killed in my life, and it shot okay. And then I think I had it maybe when we started the podcast, and then I got the carbon deploy, and then I got that carbon night as like a backup, and then I ended up with this one.
Yeah.
And then anyway,
pretty much been Bowtech.
Yeah. Well, when we were at ATA, I shot all the bows that were there, and again, it was like strictly like a value, like a very practical thing. It was like, all these bows are great. Like, this one shoots okay. Ooh, I like that one. That one's nice. And then this one, ready to hunt, is like $700, and I couldn't find anything that it like made me be like, oh, I gotta have something better than this. So,
those are good shooting little bows. I mean,
yeah. And so then I just went with that, and then Mitch gave us bows. He's like, take any bow you want from Bowtech. Bowtech guy said, go ahead and take them. And John's like, well, I want this one. And I was like, I'll just take the Zion. It's fine.
Yeah, I got the Revolt X.
And I'm still shooting that bow. How many bows have you had since then?
Just one.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I went from the Revolt X to the Mathews.
Yeah. No, there was no knock-on NTN that was before that?
The knock-on was before that.
Oh, what's it?
Yeah, because I got ordered that one when Dudley first went over to PSC. And then
first gen.
First gen.
Don't buy first gen.
And that's when I told him I'd give it back to him.
I was telling that story over the weekend at the MSA banquet, because they were talking about a local Bowtech who we won't mention where he works or what his name is, but they said, yeah, that's the guy that messed up my bow. And I was like, yeah, he's not my favorite either. And I said, well, my guy, I told him, I was like, he was shooting his bow with Dudley, at the elk. And he's like, oh, nice bow. And John says, you can have it back. And he goes, what? What's wrong with it? And then he took it to the booth, and he's telling him everything that's wrong with it. And he's saying, you need to do this. And he's like, I did. I put everything back to stock. And Dudley looks at it and looks at the strings and goes, oh, what strings are these? And he's like, I made them. And he's like, you made them? Yeah, in my garage. So, yeah, I was just telling that story. But yeah, so that's the way that I look at bows, is it's just like a practical thing. So I know it was one of the first weeks that we were shooting, because then I went to the PA show and I shot all the Bear bows there, because I knew that they had made some changes, and I know that they're like super cheap. And I mean, yeah, they have $1,000 bow, but you can get a brand new, pretty nice bow for like $500. And I was looking at like the Whitetail Max, because that had the EKO cams, which are like nicer cams. But this Bear Paradigm has the same cams as the Bear Alaskan that I have, and I think the Alaskan XT. No, the Alaskan XT is the same bow. I was looking at the Whitetail Max because it had the EKO cams, and the Alaskan XT is the same cams that I have on this Alaskan that I've got, which is a decent shooting bow. I've been shooting it a lot lately, and the the Paradigm's the same bow, but it has a bigger cam and it goes up to 32. And I was like, wait a minute. So I pulled up the specs. And so right here, I got it up on the screen. This Bear Paradigm, axle to axle, 33 inches, 333 feet per second, draw length 27 to 32. Oh, goes out to John's range. And 55 to 70, 6.5 inch brace height. Doesn't list the weight, but it only comes in a ready to hunt package. So then I went over to the Mathews lift, 33 inch axle to axle, 6.5 inch brace height, up to 34 or 343 feet a second. But that's a half inch longer draw length than for IBO because they pump it up. So
yeah.
So these are going to be pretty similar as far as like the spec sheet. So we're kind of throwing it back to the Helium and the Bear encounter. So
right.
When John was on vacation, he came back from vacation, and I said, "How bad do you want to lift?" And he's like, "I mean, I don't need one." And I'm like, "Well, I got an idea for you." And I said, "Well, what do you think about this?" And what did you say? Because I was like, we'll get a Bear Paradigm, and we'll strip it down. We'll take all the ready to hunt stuff off of it. We'll put new strings on it, and then I reached out to Redline, and they sent us a rest. Well, so the Redline has Bowhunter packages, so you can pick like the sight that you want, and then if you want a stabilizer, if you want this. So we got a stabilizer, rest, and sight from them
for
both bows. So it's going to be as apples to apples as we can do it, and then the Bear strings. And I was talking to the guy at Grand Valley, and big shout out to the guys at Grand Valley Archery for hooking us up with this with a Bear bow. They gave us just dealer cost on that.
Grand Valley Sporting Goods.
Grand Valley. What did I say? Yeah, Grand Valley.
Yeah. Well, you said Grand Valley Archery.
Yeah.
But
okay.
if you're going to look them up, it's like Grand Valley Sports.
Yeah. So he's like, yeah, they're not going to put $200 strings on a $600 bow. So I'm already like in my head as I'm like formulating this plan of like how we're going to do this. I'm already thinking about like, how's John going to weasel his way out of this? How is he going to make this like not fair? So what we're going to do is we're going to have John set up both of them for himself. And then he's going to have to shoot him at tack. So he's going to shoot the Bear 2 days, I think. This was going to happen. So he's going to actually have to try to shoot this thing at 140 yards or whatever.
Right. No, I like shooting that Alaskan even like when I was setting it up for you, and I turkey hunted with it too. It's just it's a short axle to axle, so it's a little bit harder for me with my long draw. The angle, the string angle. But the other thing about that, the Alaskan, it has a really soft back wall. Like the cable stops on that really, they have a lot of give. You can get another 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch out of it if you pulling hard on the back wall.
So let's see. This I know that this has, I don't know if it says it on here or whatever, but it's got limb stops and cable stops. Right. This one does. So you can change that how you want. And then I watched a couple of videos on this Paradigm. There's not a whole lot out there about it, but there's a guy, it's like Mike's Archery or something. He's out of PA, and he just, each bow that he gets in, he does like all the same tests with it. And one of the things was that this bow was actually quieter than the Mathews Lift 33. Now, I don't know how that translates to like vibration or anything like that. And I'm fairly certain he was shooting it with all the stuff on it, so that might have dampened it, because it just comes ready to hunt. I doubt he's taking all the shit off of it to do a unboxing video to shoot it, So,
well, like I said, I'm excited to shoot it. The one difference, like between the Mathews and the Bear, like obviously, like looking at the pictures, so they're both 33 inches axle to axle. But if you look at the risers, like the riser on the Mathews is way longer, so that's going to give you some more stability.
Yeah, I think the axles are actually shorter than the riser because it's parallel limb, but it comes down below that. So the that bow is enormous.
Yeah, the riser's enormous.
Yeah, well, I don't know. We'll have to measure like cam top to cam top because it's big.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, just looking at it, I mean, when you picked it up and brought it over to my place, I was like, I mean, everything on it, ready to hunt for $659.
Yeah.
I mean,
obviously, the strings, because I've got a traditional peep and the one that I've got, and I've shot it 1,000, 1,500 shots or more through it, and the peep sight moves about.
That's why
like
they put
a good half inch. No, up and down.
Oh,
yeah, it moves up and down. It's tied in. The strings are awful on it. So this year, Bear's got like a caged riser. It's pretty light. We'll have to go through it because I know you just had it for like a second, but like for me, like first impressions like of the bow. Oh, and well, the riser's nice. The limbs just seem really cheesy, like really cheap. I don't know.
Yeah, the limbs to me, like looking at initial. I mean, you look at the limb. There's numbers right towards the pockets, and that's the deflection, and not one of them was the same. So, and normally they're not from left to right because if it's a left-handed bow or a right-handed bow, whatever, you're gonna have a higher deflection on one side than the other because of your cable. Your cable guard's gonna pull harder on one side than the other, so they offset it. But just looking at it, initially you could kind of see the limbs weren't perfectly in line. The other thing with these limbs, you can't just swap them from one side to the other without switching them from top to bottom because of the way that they're shaped. Like some of the older bows, like some of the Hoyts and stuff, you could basically swap them from one side to the other because they're identical. They're just a perfect rectangle. So this side's a little stiffer, so I'm going to swap them over. I mean, that's a lot of technical stuff there. I mean, but it shouldn't be a problem, just switch them diagonally.
Now, one of the things when you and I were talking before, you were like, the only thing about this bow or these bows is like they're a little bit more difficult to tune. Like, how so? Well, I guess is it just like what you explained at the beginning, like more difficult than the Mathews?
Yeah. I mean, so this one's got a split yoke, so tunability on it. Zoom out on that picture. I don't know if the bottom. So the bottom cam on this one.
So I can see. Let's see. I guess that's all I can get you, John.
So it looks okay. So on the bottom, this is the standard like cam loop. On the top, it has a split yoke. It looks like. Can you get a diagonal of it?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, right there. Zoom. Top has a split yoke. Bottom is not a split yoke. So it's easier to tune a double split yoke because you can just put a twist on one side or the other on up and down. And that was one thing, like when I noticed with this bow when you pulled it out, the bottom cam is almost touching the limb. And so I'm gonna have to shim that over if
or swap the limbs.
Or swap the limbs. But you're definitely gonna have to shim it to get it away from that.
And just to be fair, that was one of the things with Grand Valley Sports or Grand Valley Sporting Goods, is that was like, are we going to have to tune this bow or anything? And I'm like, no, we're putting new strings on it. We're tearing everything off of it. So there's no need for that.
Right.
But one thing I didn't mention about this bow, like this bow in particular, that's pretty slick, is for the $650 price point. Now the sight is junk. I mean, what I would say. But what's cool is it does have machined into the riser the slots for the new like integrated
like the
pick rail system,
Yeah,
and then the same thing for the rest. So it just has like one of the Whisker Biscuit type setups on there, but you can just slide an integrated rest on there
and sight.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
so
we're getting a low profile.
Yeah, we didn't get that with from Redline. Redline has that stuff coming out with their new torch sight and that stuff, but I didn't get that because Mathews doesn't have that, so we'd have to have one with the integrate, one without. And John would say, "Well, this one balances better because the sight's." I'm like, well, I'm leaving nothing. I'm leaving 0 outs on this. But what I was asking John about, because this bow is adjustable, and the sights that we got from Redline, I didn't even know this. I guess it's more on like tournament sites and stuff like that.
Yeah,
they have the metal sight tapes that you can just
normally you see it. Yeah, in the higher end, like Excel.
Yeah,
like Excel. Can't even think of the name of it, but yeah, they have a metal, 2 screws, and you pop the plate off. So for your yardage.
Yeah. So the torch sights that we got from Redline they have that just as their stock that comes with it. And so I was like, John, can we just set up a tape for me, just swap the mods down, and then when you're shooting the lift, I'll shoot the bear. So at least I won't obviously have the same like experience as you shooting both of them, but just to be able to swap a sight tape on there, and then I'll shoot it for a day, and then I can see like how I like it.
Yeah. So the only difference in that might be the peep. Like my peep might be a little different than yours, but I mean, I just cut it out, cut the tie outs, and then push it down or something. It might have to adjust a little bit, but
and that's why for when John broke his nose there with his D loop, he had the soft knocking points tied in, so all he had to do was swap that out. And so that's one of the things that you can do. And then what we do, and that's how I know, like on the other bear, that peep keeps moving, is I've got it marked on the string, so I just keep sliding it back up. So we just put 2 sets of marks on there too.
Yeah, 2 sets of marks, and so like on the other bear, like the one where it's sliding, if we tie it in with some halo serving, that grips the string a little better, so that would eliminate some of the movement, and then maybe tighten up the tie-ins above and below it.
It's the bottom one keeps sliding. I keep having to move it back up.
Yeah.
But anyways, I mean, for me, I think this is probably about as close as we're gonna get. And so I had kind of polled the guys in the Patreon group as like going into this, saying like, what do you think is the flagship, like the bow? So, and I say this all the time, but like when I am trying out new sticks, I always go against the beast stick because I think that's the standard.
Right.
And then when I go get like a platform, I think there's nothing really you need any more than the Predator. Like the Predator is, I think, the standard, and then what does it do for you, or how does it match up against that? Right. And so I think you got to think that Mathews is the leader, and
yeah, I mean, kind of. I mean,
or so if you were to say, okay, if you polled 1,000 people as to what the top bow every year is, like what's the bow that everything else is measured against?
Yeah, that's a hard one. I mean, because people are brand specific, obviously. It could be a turd, and they'd be like, yeah, this is the best shooting bow ever.
But you might be like me, who just says, I'll never shoot a Mathews because I hate Mathews guys. It's like I don't like the University of Michigan just because I don't like arrogant pricks. And I got friends that go to the University of Michigan. You guys out there, it's just, growing up, that was the thing. Like, for you guys that are, Michigan alums and all that stuff. My brother went to Michigan State, so I've got that going for me too. So just even made it even worse. But that's how I feel about Mathews. It's like they would just look down their nose at you because they got their $1,500 bows.
Well, now, I mean, everyone's got you know.
But because Mathews was the first ones to go $1,000 or more, and then it
Well,
just keeps
yeah,
pushing
because
the number.
I mean, back in the day, remember what Mathews
Catch us if
catch
you
if
can.
you can, you know, and then they caught him. I mean, passed him. But it all, like I said, it all comes down to which one feels. I really don't like the Mathews grip. I don't like. I got rid of that first thing, and I put a UV on it, and it had a little bit of learning, and I still have to really focus on my grip. Like when I have shots like that are breaking left or right, it's my grip. And I didn't have that as much with the Bowtech. The Revolt X I shot really good with. I mean, I think I won that year. And yeah, I took first place that year with that Revolt X. Last year I was shooting the Mathews, but I only shot like 3 weeks out of the full season. So this year I'm still shooting that same Mathews, but I do have some left and right issues for the most part. But the grip felt really good on the bear. So I mean, I was happy with that. Like just for the few minutes I was checking it out. So like I said, I'm excited to shoot it at TAC. I'll shoot that the first day for sure, and then like you said,
You're gonna shoot it at Dudley's. Yeah, you'd be like, I got rid of your NTN and I'm shooting this puppy
I'm shooting
now.
this $700 bow.
But
how do you like me now?
But that I don't know. I think I'm hoping to get out of this, like to be able to. I don't necessarily want to like open people's eyes to be like, oh, you can shoot a bear, because I really don't care. Actually, they were kind of like shitty, like trying to deal with to try to like, hey, can you even just give me a bow at cost? And can't get a hold of anybody. They're like when the other guy was there that was dealing with the marketing and stuff, the guy that I had on the podcast, like Alec was great, and like this new guy, he's tough to get a hold of and to get. Right. So it's not like I'm trying to say like, oh, you guys need to shoot bear archery. What I'm just trying to say is that like, if Travis can watch me struggle to shoot 10s at 20 yards and take my bow and shoot 2Xs, there's got to be something in the shooter versus like the equipment.
Right.
And so this is kind of like the best thing that I could come up with to try to, make it fun. Right.
Yeah, this is gonna. I mean, it's definitely gonna make it fun for me this year. Like shooting it. I'm excited. No matter what you think, like I'm excited to shoot two bows and see how they compare. Especially the specs are really close. But it depends on. Maybe I should shoot the same course, but that's the one issue, like
fatigue, hungover,
yeah.
all the things like that. John's going to be on like a straight.
Maybe I should just carry both bows
and shoot 2 shots.
Shoot 2 shots at the first round.
Well, Frank's not shooting. Maybe he could just be your caddy.
Yeah.
Give me the.
All right, give me the bear.
But next year we'll have a bear whitetail 2 and a Pearson spoiler or something.
I had the Pearson Spoiler Plus. That sucker, 80 pounds, and I was shooting an overdraw with 18-16 arrows.
That were crossbow bolt length.
Yeah, that was a terrible shooting bow, but killed deer with it.
See, and I think that's like the crux of all this, right? Is that we kind of measure everything like with like indoor league and TAC and like 3D shoots and Vegas and all that stuff, but they all kill deer.
Well,
and
that's like, so I mean, I hate to admit this, but like when I went to Montana in 20, I shot my ass off, trained, did all this. And my buddy Mark, who went there with me, he's like, yeah, I need a new bow. So we got him. It was just like the economy. I think it was like $700, the Hoyt. Can't remember the model that
it was
year.
like the Alpha or Alpha Max or something.
Yeah. And I said it, I actually dropped it out of the freaking press that day. Because I'm so used to my press, it had, you got to really, you got to crank it all the way. And Mitch had like a brand new press, and I just like hit the wheel, and that thing just kept spinning, and all of a sudden, ting, dropped it right on the cam. Like, oh shit, brand new bow. But so, got that all set up for him, got him shooting some Montex, and he's, pretty good shot, for not shooting. He hadn't picked up a bow in years. And I told him, like, you owe it to the animal. You got to practice. So he's out there practicing. He's shooting out to 50, 60 yards. And we get out there, and he's sitting on his tailgate and smokes an elk at 40 yards. Cow elk, shoots you right through the heart. I have a picture of the heart with the freaking perfect. And then, like, 2 days later, here I'm, like, all prepped, doing all this shit. And a nice bull comes in, like 33 yards, and what do? I shoot him high in the back through no man's land, and freaking, he runs off and bugles at me like, hey, thanks a lot, asshole. And here, that was with that PSC, so I blame it on Dudley.
See, I told you John's going to find a way. He's going to find a way to blame something. Couldn't be
damn
the
PSC. No, I missed I smacked the antelope like with the fletchings because the arrow come out like a spiral. Ooh. And then I did shoot a mule deer, and the mule deer thing, that was like one of that it really got me down because I was completely calm. It was a doe. I ranged her, had plenty of time, 35 yards, and put it right on the crease behind her shoulder, and she was quartering away, and it was like last rib, like gut shot, like what the hell. And so wasn't nervous at all for that. And then but that, just like after the antelope and then after that mule deer, then I was like kind of second guessing myself. So after I shot the bull, I went back to Eddie's, and I ended up, that's when I was going to go up in the Bridgers for 2 days by myself. And I completely retuned. I went and got my Hoyt out, double checked all that, and I was like, I have 100% confidence in that bow. And I just put the PSC away. I was like, can't deal with it. It was just a complete mental.
So I see like some foreshadowing here. It's like that's what's going to happen with the bear and the lift. It's like you're going to be like on shot number 12 of Sitka, and you're going to be like, I felt so calm. Everything was good. Like so, like honestly, like in the, like during the shooting of this bow, or like I guess any bow, like you got to shoot in the strings. So you got to do that because there's going to be some things that shift and all that stuff. But like, what could literally cause a bow to go out of tune or something like that? Like I'm just saying. So theoretically, in our tests here that we're putting together, like what could cause you to be like that bear is a piece of junk, or the lift is a piece of junk? I don't think that's
So
gonna happen,
I'll go back to the PSC. The PSC was super hard to tune. Like I shimmed the cams. I built new strings for it. I built another set of strings for it.
Maybe it was the string builder.
Maybe. But everything was in spec. Like, it was just, and then I tried all different arrows. I think that was a bow I shot the Jeep with. It was. I shot, this was a full metal jacket. I was trying out different arrow shafts. Come to find out, like, after all that was said and done, it was, I think it was the Canadi arrows. Can't remember. I built a really, no, it was my heavier set of like 260s Axis, but then I was shooting the Alien archery broad,
175
grains, and I couldn't get them to fly real good out of the Bowtech, and I shot them out of the PSC, and they actually, like, those arrows flew excellent. So I actually hunted with that bow that that year whitetail with that. Didn't shoot anything, but that bow was just really hard to tune, and I lost confidence in it. So, and another thing with that setup was, and I believe this was probably the biggest problem, was I was shooting lit nocks, and the lit nocks. So this kind of goes back to like the podcast with Travis. If you have a shitty knock, and the thing about the nocturnals is, especially for like the axis arrows, every time I shot a deer or anything, like I shot a doe with them the one year, complete pass through, perfect, like not even a rip, just blew right through her, and the knock broke off. Like I've shot my targets before that were cold and the knocks broke because they're so thin. The sleeve, the plastic part, is so thin to get it around the battery cartridge that you can take the knock and just you can just wiggle it with your finger. So that little bit right there, especially shooting a fixed blade broadhead, is going to have a huge effect on your arrow flight. And I think that was one of the problems, because I had tuned the bow with both, and I knew that my regular nocks flew better, but I wanted, especially for videoing, like I wanted to be able to see, my knock flight, my arrow flight. And so I think that was one of the big issues, and then that's what I did too, is I went back, and when I got back to Ed's, I actually retuned that bow with the other nocks, and I got it shooting good, but I still didn't have the confidence in it. So I was like, screw it, I had to switch a couple things over to the Hoyt, but I didn't have the same stabilizer setup and stuff, so I just moved that over to the Hoyt. And then I went up in the British for a day, and then there's the elk were all in private. But yeah, it's just, I don't think, like with the bear, we're going to be shooting the same exact arrow setup, so that's not going to be the issue. I'll have them tuned together, and it won't be much difference between the arrows that you're shooting.
Mm-hmm.
So
it'll be the same knock,
same knocks.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And that's another big thing is like people won't realize or just buy a set of arrows. Knock pinch is a huge.
Well, but then even the fitment, like
the knock fit,
like
on your
miking the throat of the knock, and then your center serving and all that
right.
stuff, like a normal person doesn't even know anything about.
Right. So that you call any of the good string builders, like when you call them to order a set of strings, they're going to say, "What knock are you shooting?" I shoot the Easton Axis with the standard knock. Okay.
Super 3D.
Yeah, Super 3D, shoot a fire knock, biter, whatever. They build that center serving to the spec of that knock. So that way, when you pop that arrow on, you're not you spin the string and the arrow isn't turning. But you don't want it just falling off. And then the other thing also that's why I also tie on my knock points above and below, because I can set it and give myself a little bit, and it also depends on the axle to axle. So with a shorter axle, you're gonna have a bigger pinch point, or you're gonna have a tighter angle, so you're gonna have more pinch. So you want to give yourself even more room. That way, when at full draw, it's not pinching that knot. But just like my bow 2 weeks ago, I had my knock points tied on, so I can tie on a new D loop, and there's no
adjustment.
Right. One of the guys
shooting?
Like, "Were you close? Did you get it on?" Like, yeah, it was just my knock points are tied, so a lot of guys will just do one knock point, like the top one, but then you got to get that D loop just right, and if it slips a little bit, then you're pinching your knot. So I always tie two,
But so, like, on the bear, like in this little challenge here in the so let's say, so I'm going on vacation. I'll come back. Hopefully we'll have everything set up to put the new strings on to get these bows set up by, say mid-April. Right between April and TAC, we've got 2 months, 2.5 months, just under 2 months, I guess we'd say, and however many shots, whatever. Like, what would be something that would fail, or would be like, oh, this thing's junk? Like, what would cause it to go out of tune? How does that happen? Just from like normal shooting your bow. Like, what are the fail points?
Well,
I'm giving you all the outs in the world.
Right. No, I'm just trying to think. I mean, nowadays, with the new set of strings, one of the things is your strings. Like, if you have a shitty set of strings, say that fast, they're going to stretch and twist on you. So your bow's going to keep going on, or cables, like your bow's going to go out of spec. So that's going to change everything. If we have brand new sets of strings that are high end, baby Bs, that's not going to be an issue. Once I get the initial tune, I don't see any reason, I don't see any excuses, depending on the limbs, and the components are all going to be the same. Now, obviously, like the Mathews, the limb pockets and all that are machined, they're precision. So, like the Bear, they might not be as precision, and as you shoot, they can wear in a little bit. You can get a little bit of, movement there. The limbs might start separating a little bit inside that pocket, but that's just. Now you're just
kind of like normal wear.
Exactly.
Yeah. And for a guy who's not going to shoot 10,000 arrows out of the thing,
right, or shoot 120 yards. I guarantee it. Like, you go out, you buy this bow, go out whitetail hunting, you're going to kill deer with it. Like I said, you can go to the pawn shop and buy a bow. Once it gets tuned, and you get your arrows tuned to that bow and your broadheads, then you're going to be money at 30 yards, 40 yards even.
Well, I'm just excited to see you shoot it, because it's like, and you did tote that Bear around. I forgot about that for turkeys, but like I don't know. I think it's gonna be a fun project.
I think the issue I had with the Alaskan was the rest that we were trying to shoot.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was like, I don't know if it was part of our sponsorship at that point or what, but it just didn't work for our turkey setup, because
we had a 5-inch fletch.
Right. I shoot 5 vanes or feathers, and they're 5-inch, to help steer that big freaking propeller on the end, the guillotine head. Well, it was getting pinched in that rest. So I couldn't get the bow to tune good because of that.
More to come on this, but I'm gonna get some different broadheads just because you brought it up. These VPA broadheads, I know you haven't seen them, but VPA has some turkey getter broadheads, turkey spurs they're called. These things are wild, and they're not even heavy. They make a 125 and a 150, but it's just an insane looking broadhead. So I want to try one. That's what I'm going to try and kill one with this year, I think. And anyways, just a little rabble. I want to show John those because they won't take that much steering. It's just a regular fixed blade broadhead that's ridiculous. Check those out. Our good buddy Joe from Generations to Hunt, he picked up a sponsorship from VPA, so I think his code is GH10 if you want to get some VPA broadheads. But check out their turkey spurs; they're pretty wild.
Looks like a freaking rocket ship.
I know, it's nuts. But yeah, I'm excited to watch you. I like seeing you have to work to tune a bow. For real though, because it's something that's foreign to me. So watching you set up a new bow and like one that you haven't worked on before, because it just kind of shows me that they're all in some ways the same, you know, and that it's like it's doable, right? I was saying like when I get a new string for that Alaskan, I'm gonna have you just like hold my hand and have me put it on the press and put a new string on it and do that, just because I feel like it's time to at least try it, you know. But yeah, so I guess we'll close out with this. Like, what are your predictions? Because I was sitting in the parking lot of the bow shop talking to Greg, and he's like, we all know how this one's gonna end, you know. And I was like, I don't know, man. I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's gonna be like the sexy choice, and I can't imagine that John's gonna be like, oh yeah, you can have the lift. Go ahead. I'm going to shoot this bear for the year. But for John's 2 hunts that he does a year, I don't think it's going to matter one way or the other. But I guess, like, what are your predictions?
Well, kind of like I think just the precision machining, like the quality of the Mathews, obviously, is going to be better. And the riser does have, like, that long riser. Just after shooting the long risers now, the stability of it definitely helps. Like, I really like the feel of it. But I'm excited too. I'm excited to shoot them both, you know, head to head and see how it turns out.
Yeah, so we've got some more stuff coming up with Travis. Once I get back from out of town, I got to get with him and go up there, and you know, he wants to get me ready to shoot, wants me tailgate ready to try and shoot for the truck. But we are still giving away a set of Canatis and 11 shots at the truck. And Travis and John are going to get you set up to make sure your bow's good, make sure that the arrows are right, and kind of give you an aiming point and all that. But more to come on that. But that's what we got, and glad to have John back in the studio here. I did some upgrading to the studio since John's...
looks like a whole different place. Holy shit.
I got some comfy chairs. That was
Yeah, that's way better. Like, those old wooden chairs, man, used to cut the circulation up to my feet.
So, yeah, but just keep following along. We're going to do some videos with John setting these up and kind of, you know, first impressions and kind of like ease of tuning, all that stuff. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for checking us out. And we'll see you. And if you're going to be up at TAC, we're doing the cookout again. We'll be a little bit further down the road. But if you're going to be up there, definitely hit us up. And Uncle Frank's not even shooting this year. He's just hanging out. So, you know, if you need a sandwich, you need a place to, you know, relax, go heckle the golfers with Uncle Frank. So, all right, we'll see you guys.